Jen, welcome to the Childhood Potential Online Montessori Conference, and thank you for accepting to be one of our speakers. I'm really glad you are here.
Thanks for having me, Lucy. It's really great to meet you.
I will say a few words about you at the beginning, but feel free to add anything that I have forgotten or didn't mention. You are the host of your Parenting Mojo podcast that was named the best research-based parenting podcast by Lifehacker. You have attended Berkeley and Yale, and then you followed a traditional career path in consulting and sustainability consulting. But then you became a parent and you found out that the toughest challenge for you is actually parenting. And you went back to school, you went back to get your master's degree in psychology, focused on child development. You have also written a book, Parenting Beyond Power: How to Use Connection and Collaboration to Transform Your Family and the World. What did I forget? Add anything.
Thanks so much for that. I guess to sort of orient folks who are watching this a little bit to where I come from. Yeah, I came from this sort of academic and research-based background and then became a parent and realized that I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. And I then quickly figured out, well, I'm really good at research and I can use the skills that I have to close the gaps in my parenting intuition instinct, which wasn't there. And I didn't have great parenting role models either. So it wasn't like I could look to my family for, how do I want to parent? And so, yeah, so that was why I ended up going back to school. And I kind of thought, well, if I'm learning all this stuff, I might as well share it with other people too. And so I would sort of share what I was learning through my master's degrees on the podcast. And then it sort of expanded from there. And now I most of the time I talk to the world's leading researchers in their fields on specific topics that parents want to know about, like, grit and growth mindset and implicit bias and those kinds of things. And some of the episodes, I sort of try to take a sort of a cross-cutting approach and say, okay, if we tie all this together, what can we understand about this topic that parents are really interested in? Like, should we use timeouts? Is there a place for timeouts in sort of a gentle parenting kind of world? And what have we learned from over 200 episodes that can help us to understand that? So yeah, so that's sort of how I spend most of my time and supporting parents in workshops and communities that I run coming off the podcast.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about your book, Parenting Beyond Power? Do you want us to hear like the most important thing that we should somehow grab from the ideas in the book?
I think the most important idea in the book is something that I kind of came to over a period of several years as I was working on the podcast. And around 2019, I first started exploring the idea of intergenerational trauma. So trauma that's carried in down through our families, from our parents, from our grandparents, and further back than that. And from there, started looking at kind of really big social issues like white supremacy, racism, patriarchy, capitalism, and how those show up in our families, how those affect us. And so I was exploring these big topics on the podcast. And at the same time, I was running a membership community. And the kind of questions I'm getting for parents over and over again every day are along the lines of, how do I get my child to ... How do I get my child to get dressed in the morning, to get out the door in the morning, to brush their teeth, to, stay in bed at the end of the day? And for a while, it was like I was on these two parallel paths and I couldn't figure out what was happening. And eventually I realized these are not two unrelated topics. These are intimately connected. And that the way that we interact with our children on a day-to-day basis on topics that sound like they're about discipline and about how do we just get through the day are actually shaping how our children show up in relationships with us, in relationships with other people, and how they use power in those relationships. So if you think about, if you're sort of using a gentle parenting approach and you're, trying not to use the same ways that your parents raised you with your child, and you're at the same time, you're like, I don't know how to get them to brush their teeth other than to hold them down and force the toothbrush into their mouth, or like, surfboard carry them down the stairs and into the car or onto the bus and out the door, right? And so we end up using our power over our children because we don't know what else to do. But if we're telling our children, it's not good to have power over other people, we should treat everybody fairly and equally, and then we use our power over them to get them to do things because we don't know what else to do, right? If you think about telling a child not to swear and then you swear in front of them, which lesson do they learn? They learn the lesson that you did, not the lesson that you said. So the book really kind of is not about how do we talk to our kids about big social issues, because there's a lot of good books around there out on that topic already, particularly when it comes to talking about race and racism. The book is about how do these interactions show up in our daily tasks, and how do we get through those tasks in a way that actually shares power with our child, that meets our needs, both our needs and our child's needs as well, because that feels really good when we both get our needs met, and then there's no more fight anymore.
You talk about needs, and I feel that is a very important topic also throughout your book. What do you mean by that? What are our needs and what are the
Yeah.
needs of our children?
Yeah, it's so important because we think we know what our needs are, right? Our need, like, I need you to put your shoes on. I need you to brush your teeth. It seems so obvious, right? But it's actually not. So my work is heavily based in nonviolent communication, which was developed by Marshall Rosenberg. And so he gives this definition that is going to sound kind of fluffy. And then I'm going to give you some examples of what needs are. And you're going to be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So a need is a universal human requirement that's considered a fundamental condition necessary for well-being, that is not tied to specific actions or people, but rather represents an internal state of being. Okay, so what? Okay, so examples. Need for connection, right? I need to feel connected to other people. A need for belonging. I need to feel as though I can put a message out into the world that says, am I lovable? And get a message back saying, yes, you
Mhm.
are lovable as you are, right? Safety, for our children, things like autonomy, those become really big needs. And so when we're using that sort of, that English language, and probably other language as well, right? That twist on what a need is. I need you to put your shoes on. We're tying our need to a specific person doing a specific thing. And well, if you don't put your shoes on right now, then I can't get my needs met. When actually, if I see that my need is for responsibility to my coworkers, for ease, for harmony, for collaboration with you, my child, and if I see that your need is maybe for connection with me, right? That when you are looking at sort of, we're heading out the door in the morning, we're heading to daycare, preschool, and you're seeing that and you're thinking, well, the longer I drag out getting ready in the morning, the more time I get to spend with my parent. Then we can see how the child is trying to meet their need through stalling and resisting putting their shoes on, right? And so then we can move towards helping the child to feel more connected, which then also meets our needs for respect for our colleagues, for ease, for collaboration, for all the other things that we want to get in our relationships as well. So that's kind of basically what a need is, and how to see it in two different people, and why it's so important to separate the need from the strategy we're using to meet our need, right? You put your shoes on now is a strategy to meet my needs for all the things I mentioned. And when we think about the level of needs in both of us, right? What are my needs and what are my child's needs? All of a sudden we find 10 other strategies that could work just as well, right? I could help you to put your shoes on. I could carry your shoes down to the car or to the bus with you, and you can put them on when we get there, right? There's so many other potential strategies we can use to meet our needs, and there we find something that works for everybody.
This conference is especially targeting parents who are following or who are interested in the Montessori path. And in Montessori, we emphasize observing the child closely to understand their developmental needs. We need to observe as well to understand the needs that you are talking about. We need to observe ourselves and also we need to observe the children. Do you have some tips, like how to actually understand the
Yes.
need of the child, how to get that point where the behavior is coming from?
Yeah. I love that question. And if you're observing your child, you're so far along towards understanding what might happen, right? If you're not observing your child, then the chances of you figuring out what your child's need is relatively small. And so what are we observing is the key thing that we're looking for, right? When I work with parents, one of the first things I teach them is to look for patterns, right? Is this resisting putting your shoes on in the morning only happening on days where we're going to daycare and preschool? Or is it happening anytime we're trying to leave the house when I'm coming with you and we're going to the park as well? Or is there no problem on those days? If it's only happening on the daycare preschool days, we can imagine maybe it's not about anything related to the shoes or, anything about separation or anything like that. It's, if it's only happening on those daycare preschool days, maybe there's something going on at daycare preschool. Maybe they're having a difficult interaction with a teacher, with another student. Maybe they just have a hard time being separated from us for a long period of time. So we're looking first for those sort of patterns. And to take the other side of that, if it is also happening on days when we're not going to be separated, when we're going together to the park that the child likes to go to, then we can say, okay, clearly this is not about separation because I'm coming with you. Are these socks or shoes really uncomfortable for you? Do you have really strong sensory needs that make putting your shoes on really hard? What other patterns can I find that indicate, okay, yes, this is more about sensory need, or maybe it's about autonomy, right? For young kids, autonomy is huge. I want to decide things that feel really meaningful to me. That's important to me too. And, what socks do I wear? What shoes do I wear? How do they get put on? All of those are important decisions to a young child. And so when we see those needs, then again, we find strategies to meet those needs. And I know the very next question is, but my child isn't really communicating with words yet. So how do I figure it out? And you may also have noticed that the examples I'm giving on how you can observe your child do not rely on your child saying anything at all, right? You're looking for what kinds of situations does this come up in as your clue to understand what is it about the underlying, what is the underlying need that then I can point towards, how do I actually meet that need? Because if the need is for connection, then I'm going to start doing things like, I can't tell you what an amazing magic trick this is. 10 minutes of connected one-on-one playtime every day, predictably, with a child doing a thing that they most like to do can transform relationships when you're spending a lot of time apart, right? And so it's the predictability, the consistency that's so important for that child and doing things that they find really connecting. But if your child's needs for autonomy, then they'll be like, yeah, cool, I love connecting with you, but I still want to make the decision about what socks I wear. And so that's why we're sort of we're looking to our child's resistance, our child pushing back as that signal to say something about this is not right here. And then maybe we're doing some journaling to say, okay, these are the kinds of instances when it's coming up. Okay, what patterns do I see across all these instances, and what need can I imagine that being related to?
Sometimes, us as parents, it's very hard for us to actually shift the perspective to see the behavior only as a signal because
Yeah.
we are tired, because we are really busy, because there is like so many things going on.
Yeah.
Would you have any tips on how to really calm down and see what's really going on? What is behind that behavior? I'm thinking about those moments when it's really in a rush, in stress,
Yeah.
in
Yeah, it is so, so hard. And I mean, the fact that our culture says that this is how we should live, right? Rushing from one thing to the next, trying to earn enough money to keep everything afloat and also connect with the people who are important to us. And, all these messages we get about being a perfect mother, particularly perfect parent, yes, but particularly perfect mother. And that means doing certain things in certain ways. And it's just exhausting. It's really exhausting. And so I think what's really important to know about using these kinds of tools is that it does take a little bit more work to figure out what the need is, but it takes a little bit more work once.
yeah.
Right? So if you're having a fight with your child every single day over the same thing, how would you like to not spend that time in the dread that the fight is coming, right? In the already ramping up, I know this is going to end badly. I know I'm going to be late for work again or for wherever it is that I'm going. I'm going to end up in a meltdown. My kid's going to end up in a meltdown. I'm going to end up in a meltdown. I'm going to say things I regret. I'm going to have to apologize later, right? What if we could avoid that entire thing? Okay. So the way that we can do that is to pick an instance that happens on a regular basis, right? The toothbrushing, the stuff that happens every single day that your child is resisting. And so when we do that, we can start to think, okay, what are my real needs in that situation? And if you're still, new to the idea of needs, yourparentingmojo.com/needs. There's a list of needs there. It's freely available. You can download it in English and a bunch of other different languages as well. And there's also a picture-based version that you can print out, stick on the fridge, and so your child can start to refer to their feelings and needs as well. And so you start to think, okay, what is really important to me? And you're kind of looking down the list of needs and looking for a real physical sensation inside yourself of, yes, that is what I want. And usually when I do this with parents, they get me down the list, ease. Woof, yes, that is what I want. I want this to be easier. Right? I'm also looking for collaboration, for harmony, for, all the other things that we're looking for in our daily lives. And then we do the same thing from our child, right? Trying to put ourselves in the body of a 2-year-old who is told what to do so many times throughout the day, and thinking, okay, if that was me, what might my needs be? And so looking at that needs list again, yeah, I'd want to say what's important to me too. I would want autonomy as well. I would want connection to my parent, okay? And then another useful tool in the book is the idea of a needs cupcake, right? And that idea is that we don't have to look through this list of 50 needs every time we have a difficult situation with our child. The needs cupcake is that there's a cherry on top of the cupcake, and that is our 3 to 5 most important needs that come up over and over and over again. And so the same goes for our child. For young children, it's often connection, autonomy, and maybe some kind of sensitivity, like, food, fatigue, things like sensory issues related to clothing. Those kinds of things are often up there in that cherry. Underneath that is the frosting, right? The next 3 to 5 needs that come up over and over again. And underneath that is the cupcake, which is everything else that's there kind of in the background, but not of primary importance. And so then when you start to see resistance from your child, all of a sudden you can say, okay, is it connection? Is it autonomy? Is it a sensory need? We're looking at 3 things, which is so much more manageable. And all of a sudden we understand, why is this happening? And we can say, okay, what is my real need here? Is it actually to get this task done, or is it for collaboration, and like I need some mental space right now. How can I get some mental space without requiring that not do this thing I'm asking you not to do? Maybe I could wear earplugs, and instead of telling you to stop jumping on the couch, right? Maybe I could move to a different room. Maybe I could ask, would you rather I move to a different room, or would you be willing to play, a quieter game? That's where we start to find strategies that meet both of our needs.
Mhm. Maybe there are also teachers who are watching us, not only parents. And the question that probably would come from them would be how I can approach meeting the needs of each one individual child while I'm still balancing the whole group of children in that age.
Yeah, yeah. I've done a lot of workshops with preschool teachers based on parenting beyond power, and yeah, that issue comes up a lot. And we have to admit that teachers have constraints that parents don't have, right? A lot of them have licensing requirements. The kids have to get outside for X minutes per day. In some states, the kids have to wear sunscreen. And so if your child doesn't like having sunscreen on, there are relatively few options that can replace the sunscreen. So 100% admit that it's a little bit harder. Also, I guess I would ask teachers to say, how much of my time and energy and attention is it taking to navigate what's happening with that one child right now? And how much is that taking away my time and energy and attention from all the other children in the classroom? Because what's happening right now is not really sustainable either, right? In terms of the teacher's bandwidth capacity to actually be with all the children. So once again, what we're looking for is, why is the child resisting this, right? Maybe there's something going on at home. Maybe the child has a new sibling and is feeling completely dysregulated and is worried about their place in the family. And, all of a sudden they're at preschool for more hours than they were before and they're feeling disconnected from their parent, and that's coming out in difficult behavior. Maybe the child has a strong sense of autonomy and wants to be the one who makes important decisions. And it's hard to let one child decide when we go out for break time. And so, what we're looking for is decisions in that case that feel really meaningful to the child, right? What is the maximal amount of autonomy we can offer within this framework where we have 20 other kids and licensing requirements to be within, right? What kinds of decisions can we offer to them that are really meaningful to them, right? I remember when my daughter was she was like 2.5, maybe 3, probably 3, and she didn't want to nap anymore at preschool. And the teachers are like trying to get her to nap because they didn't want the rest of the room to be disturbed. And she's coming home, she's really frustrated about this. And so we try and understand what's going on for you. She wants to not be bored during nap time, and she's feeling bored when she can't get to sleep. And we try and understand what's going on for the teacher, right? The teacher has a responsibility toward the other kids. It's also their break time. They don't want to have to worry about what she's doing. And so what we came up with was an arrangement where we could move her mat to a part of the room where they could easily kind of see in a window through the door that was also a bit separated from the other kids, so that she could have a once in a while just kind of peek in, make sure she's doing okay. And so that's a strategy that meets everybody's needs in this situation, and and still allows the other children to get their rest.
Mhm. I love how you are giving us like real life tips and strategies. So maybe I will bring a real life situation. Our 4-year-old daughter, she is the youngest one in our family. She is the little one who is taken care of all the time. And right now we are having this I don't want to go to school period.
It's about how do we think about this that
Mhm.
allows us to find strategies that meet both of our needs, right? Okay,
Mhm.
the first thing we're going to do is approach this from a non-judgmental observation. So it's not how do I get my kid to stop resisting going to school.
Yeah.
It's we're having a hard time getting out the door in the morning, right? This is on school days, and so this is a challenge that's located between us in the relationship, right? It's not just that she has to change her behavior and then everything will be better. Okay. And so I sent you a list of feelings. And so I wonder if you can just pull up that list and take a look at that list of feelings. And first tell me what's coming up for you when maybe you're anticipating it coming, and then you're seeing this, these difficult feelings coming up in her, which is then, arousing difficult things for you. So the first page in that list is list of feelings when needs are met. And so maybe you're feeling kind of calm beforehand. And then the second page is list of feelings when needs are not met. And we'll probably spend most of our time on that page.
Mhm. Well, first I would say that she always goes to school. She just because we talk about it a lot. So it's not really about her getting stuck, for example, with the shoes. She goes.
Yeah.
But she tries it in the morning. She wakes up and she says, "Are you really busy today? Could I leave you at home? I don't feel like going to school." So my feeling in that moment probably would be a little heavy heart, like
Mhm.
feeling I I could, be at home
Mhm,
with her, work
mhm,
with her. And I would feel probably sad that
mhm.
she is not excited about going
Right,
to school.
right. Is there any kind of annoyance there, or is it mostly the sadness aspect?
I would say more sadness.
Okay.
Sometimes I would feel maybe guilty, like, hey, you are working from home. She
Mhm.
could stay at home.
Right.
But still, I know that when she comes from school, she's happy.
Okay. All right, and I think that guilt is super common, right? Like, I'm a parent and I'm working, or I'm doing, even if I'm not working, I'm doing my self-care in the days when you're at preschool or daycare. And there's a sense of guilt of I could be with you and I'm choosing to do something different. And that is totally fine, right? That is meeting other needs for us as well. You're meeting needs for learning, for doing meaningful work in the world, for all kinds of things through being here in this conversation with me right now. And it's okay to have those needs and meet those needs too. Okay, so we've got you feeling kind of heavy-hearted and sad and guilty, and we may uncover other things as we go through. And so now let's try and put yourself in your 4-year-old's shoes. And so for just a couple minutes, right? I'm wondering if you could close your eyes if it's a little easier to do that just for a minute and just think, okay, yeah, I am a 4-year-old. Oof, it's hard to be me sometimes. There's a lot going on. And just kind of for the next couple of minutes, talk to me as if you are your 4-year-old. Would you be willing to tell me her name?
Anna.
Anna. Okay. All right. So Anna, maybe you wake up in the morning and maybe you're feeling happy and kind of ready for the day and energized, and then you start to think, "Oh, I wonder if I could stay home from school today." I'm going to go and ask mom and see what mom says about that. Can you tell us what your feelings are in the morning, both before you ask mom to stay home and also after you make that ask and mom says, I got a lot going on today. I don't think it's going to be possible today."
Well, probably before I would be excited for the day. I would also be excited about all the fun things that I'm going to do with mom or with dad
Yeah.
or with all of the other siblings in the house. And then I would realize that it's a school day.
Oh, no.
And probably I would feel sad or alone because I would have to leave the house and maybe alone, maybe a little worried because she's going to an international English speaking school and it's not her
Uh,
native language.
mhm.
So maybe
She's
also overwhelmed by all of the new
Yeah.
things, the new language, teachers not speaking her language, maybe stressed
Yep.
out.
Gosh, that's a lot.
Mm.
Okay. Um, are you worried about feeling disconnected from your mom and dad? You want to feel connected to them, and you know that spending a whole day apart from them is gonna maybe you'll feel lonely as well.
Of course.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything else that comes up that you think is important on the list?
Mm, no, no.
Okay. Okay. All right. Great. Okay. So let's just come out of Anna's body for a minute.
Mhm.
Back to being Lucy again. Okay. And so now let's take a look at the needs list that I sent you. And there's a link to that actually at the bottom of the feelings page is a fast link. Just go ahead and tell me, Lucy, from your perspective, what needs are showing up for you in this situation?
For me as a mom, as a
Mhm.
parent, mm,
As a person, not just as a parent.
love,
Mhm.
support, you know, the my feeling that I want to support my family and my child. Mm,
Okay. Support is actually a little bit different than that. We're always thinking about how the needs show up in us, right? So a need for support is I want to get support from other people. Rather than
okay.
I want to support others. So what I'm hearing then is sort of a sense of purpose, and I'm guessing that's there both in your parenting and also in the broader work you do, which you had told me a little bit about before we started talking. That seems really meaningful to you, right? So doing work and being a person in the world with a sense of purpose seems really important to you.
Of course. Yeah,
Okay, so sense of purpose in
100%.
parenting and also in work.
And in life in general. Yeah.
Okay, what else? Told you that was a common one. When the fight is bigger, right? When the sense I'm getting from you as Anna is, yeah, this is something, I there are days when I wish I didn't have to go to school. But this is not a I am flat out refusing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for kids who are flat out refusing, very often the needs that come up for parents are things like ease is like big time, and also like collaboration, harmony, peace, all those kinds of things that there's just less friction about the interaction in the mornings. So but it doesn't seem to be quite as frictiony for you, so those needs are not quite as prominent for you as they are for some other parents. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm wondering if this sort of collaboration there as well to kind of
Uh,
know that you're on the same page with your daughter and that you can work with her on this issue.
100%. Also, some kind of harmony,
Mm-hmm.
maybe also integrity,
Yeah.
because I want to feel like this is correct, this is right, what we are doing here.
Yes. Okay. And I'm linking that back to your sense of purpose in parenting, work, and life, right? I believe in this Montessori approach, and I want to know that I'm practicing it with my own child as well, and so that I can be in integrity. And also, what I'm hearing from you there is competence. I have a need for competence in parenting as well.
Mhm.
Yeah, being a good parent is really important to me.
Of course.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, great. So let's now, for one more time, turn back to Anna, right? And so we're going to see things from her perspective again. So if it helps to close your eyes for a second, put yourself back into Anna's body. And for the next couple of minutes, speak to me as if you were Anna. And so, Anna, you told me a few minutes ago that you often feel excited when you wake up for the day and the things you can do with your mom and dad. And then you realize it's a school day, and all of a sudden, different feelings come up around feeling sad and alone. And then a lot of feelings related to what's happening at school, right? And that this is not a place where you get to speak your native tongue. Worried, overwhelmed, stressed out, insecure, also kind of disconnected and lonely about being apart from your parents. And so I'm wondering, can you tell me what needs come to mind as you're thinking about being at school?
Probably connection, feeling
Yeah.
loved, feeling supported, feeling understood,
Mhm. Yeah. It's huge.
trust.
Yeah. What does trust mean to you in this context?
Probably I need to trust the teacher that she has the best intention
Mm.
for me and in the situation.
Mhm.
I need to feel respected in a way,
Mhm. Yeah.
safe.
Yep. Definitely. Is there any element of autonomy to it? Like, I wanna make decisions about my life that feel really meaningful to me.
I don't feel that there because she
Mm.
has lots of autonomy in other
Okay.
areas. So I
Okay.
don't feel that it would be the case.
Okay. Um, okay. I mean, I'm just gonna sort of put that in brackets because she
Mhm.
is expressing a desire to do something different than the thing you're asking her to do, which is, in a way, kind of asking for autonomy. It's possible that's not sort of a cherry need in this situation, but I think it's kind of still there underneath.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
okay. Anything else jumping out at you?
Mm,
I think we got a pretty good list.
yeah, I think so. I think we have important things.
Okay, cool. All right. So coming out of Anna's body again and back into Lucy's body. So Lucy, I'm curious, right? We didn't do anything, like there's nothing about the situation that's different right now. And yet we kind of explored this in a bit of a different way. I'm curious as to whether your understanding of the situation has shifted in the last few minutes.
Yeah, I'm more connected to what her feelings probably are. I'm a more understanding, probably, what she might be going through.
Right. Okay. And so I think we have like two key areas to work on here based on the needs that we uncovered for her, right? There's one bucket of needs that's related to connection with you and and really, being seen and known and understood for who she really is, which is such a fundamental human need. I think that's underneath all of the other needs is to know, am I lovable, as I mentioned earlier. And then the other bucket of needs is related to what's happening at school and how hard it is to be in an environment where the predominant language that's spoken is not your native tongue. And so I think we can sort of look at strategies we can use from both perspectives. I'm wondering, do you get 10 minutes of consistent daily one-on-one time with her right now?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
We do.
Okay. And is that like dedicated, okay, we're starting special time now, or is it sort of more general, bleeding out into other things? We're doing it while we're folding laundry, while we're baking, other stuff.
I would say both.
Okay.
She has her time, playing the games that she wants to play, and she also gets the time of doing things with us that we are doing as parents.
Okay. Okay. So the twist I would encourage you to try putting on this and just see what happens, right? Try, I mean, just a week. So a lot of parents see a shift in a day. I don't want to promise that, but I would pretty much say that if there's going to be a shift, it will happen within a week. Of calling it special time, right? And having just 10 minutes. It's better to have a short period of time than a long one that you can't do some days. So pick an amount of time that is really doable on the vast majority of days. And we're going to do it every day, right? Predictably and consistently. Because what that does is that communicates, hey, I'm putting everything else down now, and you are so important that I'm going to spend this time with you doing things that you want to do. Right. There was a period of time when, during COVID, when my daughter wanted to sort rocks for
Mhm.
special time. And we had a longer stretch of special time because I work from home and I have a little more flexibility. And so, we're spending half an hour a day sorting rocks. And I'm like, ah. And eventually I learned this is my mindfulness practice. Actually, sorting rocks can be quite pleasurable if I focus on the texture of the rock and the shape of it and the sun on my arm and, those kinds of things. And so I would really encourage you to try that practice and just see what shifts as a result of that practice. And then the second thing I would look at is, are there particular parts of the day that are really hard for her at school? Is it transitions? Is it not understanding certain aspects of what's happening in the classroom? How can we bolster that relationship between her and her teacher so that she is more, excited to go to school because she is feeling safe, because she's feeling seen and heard for who she is in a school environment as well? So, maybe there are already things that you know about that you could talk to the teacher about that could help kind of, grease the wheels a little bit for that. But those are the two areas where I would be looking, because when her needs are met for connection with you and for, feeling safe and respected and trusting her teacher, you're not going to see that resistance anymore when it's time to get ready for school. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does.
Yeah. Yeah. And then your needs come along for the ride, right? You're collaborating with her. There's harmony, there's integrity, there's competence in parenting. So often parents are like, "But what about my needs?" Absolutely. So, so, so important. And so often they come along for the ride when we focus on what our kids' needs are. Our needs just get met as well. So it really is a beautiful way of being in relationship with people that I think is deeply supportive of your integrity as a person and your desire to create purpose and meaning in the world.
Thank you. Thank you. Would you like to summarize maybe a little bit like how does knowing our child's needs and our needs help us make things easier in our homes or in the classroom? And actually, not only in our home or in our classroom, but also transforming, creating long term social change.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%, and that is the overarching message of the book, is that firstly, it makes parenting easier today, and being a teacher as well, because anytime we're seeing resistance from a person, it can be any person, right? It can be your partner, it can be your teenagers, it can be your parent, it can be anybody. Whenever we see that resistance, that, "Oh, no, I'm not doing that. That doesn't work for me." Whether that's expressed verbally or non-verbally, which a young child may express it non-verbally, they may go into a roll on the floor meltdown, right? When we can see that as, oh, there's a need there that person's trying to meet. I wonder what that is. And then we try and understand what that is. And we also try, once going back to the beginning of the conversation, to separate out our need from the strategy we've been using, right? Again, my need is not for you to put your shoes on. My need is for ease, for collaboration between us, for harmony, for peace, for respect to my colleagues, for those kinds of things. And when we can see things from that perspective, all of a sudden, right, we find strategies to meet our needs. And just as we saw when I coached you, right, if we had focused on, well, 10 things we can do to get your child to stop resisting school, she would have resisted any of those as well. Because we wouldn't have understood what our needs are. And notice in as we did this, right, we didn't talk to Anna.
Mhm.
She may have some other needs that we have not fully understood, and she'll tell us that if she still resists. Where after we put these things into place and she still resists, we'll know there's another need that we didn't find. But we can do this work with even people who are nonverbal to understand what their needs are. And then they stop resisting us. And then parenting just gets easier because we're putting so much time and energy and effort into navigating our kids' resistance right now. And because the power over ways that we've been doing it feels so crummy to us, right? That's why we feel guilty after it happens. That's why we feel ashamed when we yell at our kids because we said we wouldn't do it again. And here we are with no other option than yelling at our kids to make the thing happen. And so we get out of that guilty, shamey place and just into a place where things flow on a regular basis. So that's kind of how I see it from a family perspective. And then from a social change perspective, what will it mean when we go out into the world believing that everybody else's needs are as important as our own, right? If we think about white supremacy racism, what we're essentially saying is my needs as a white person are more important than everybody else's needs who doesn't have white skin. In a patriarchal culture, a man's needs are more important than a woman's needs, more important than a trans person's needs. In a capitalist culture, because I have relatively more money than many people in many other places in the world, my needs are more important than yours. And you will go and dig, minerals out of a mine with your bare hands to put into my phone so that I can talk to people. And if I perceive your needs as just as important as mine, I don't think those social systems can exist anymore. And they've hurt us so much. They've hurt us so much. And so that's the world that I want to create, where we do truly perceive our needs as important as other people's needs. And in doing this with our kids, they naturally go out and practice this in the world with their friends, with their teachers, with other people, and it starts, it's like dropping a pebble in a pond, and the ripples just progress outwards. Just imagine the impact that your teachers can have with the number of lives that they touch using these kinds of tools. It's gives me goosebumps thinking about it. Yeah, so that's where I see it having value for us today, here in this relationship we have right now, and in the much brighter world as well.
Thank you. I have one last question. You have shared with us the list of feelings, you have shared with us the list of needs.
Mm,
If a parent is listening to us and doesn't have you to coach them
yes,
through these lists,
yeah.
how can we work with the feelings and with the needs when we are by ourselves just looking at all of the words?
Okay. Yeah. So I'll give you two things. The first is sort of this sense of, oh, yes, that is it, as you're going through that list, to try and understand. Okay, not just in my head, I'm looking at a list of words. Is that it? But in my body, we've become so disconnected from our bodies that we forget to check in with our bodies and say, what does my body say about what's right for me? So use that as your first clue. The other one, like, I'm so glad you asked this question. I always forget to mention this resource, and it's such a great resource for people. If you go to yourparentingmojo.com/quiz, there's a 10-second quiz there. It's designed for parents of young kids. So, I mean, age like 1 to 5. And you can answer 10 super simple questions, and it will share with you what is likely your child's most important need and a whole bunch of strategies that you can use to meet those needs. And so when you start addressing those cherry needs first, then things start to get easier. And then you can start to work on other places where you're still seeing resistance after that. So yourparentingmojo.com/quiz is where that is. And it's free and available to anybody.
Perfect. Thank you, Jen. Did we forget to say something? Would you like to add anything that we didn't mention?
I think the overarching idea, to reiterate one more time, is when we see the challenges we're having with our kids, with any other person in our life, as a struggle over needs, and when we try to understand what our real need is in that situation and what the other person's real need is, we will find a strategy to meet both of our needs more than 90% of the time. There are other tools in Parenting Beyond Power, how to use things like boundaries, like limits, like consequences, in the very few occasions where we can't find a way to meet both of our needs. But we got you covered for more than 90%. So yeah, it really helps to make everything easier.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing all the resources. And yeah, thank you for your energy that you have given us.
You're so welcome. That was really fun. Thanks, Lucy.